on the 9th of November, and the armistice service will be on the 11th of November. So again, if we could all turn out, and I'm sure we will, that would be absolutely fantastic. Now some good news. Dudley Trading Standards have been selected as the winner of Outstanding Trading Standards Project Award for the 2025 CTSI Hero Awards. The judging panel considered nominations from across the UK. The work in Dudley stood out as a model of innovation, collaboration and consumer protection excellence. I'm sure members will join me in offering our congratulations to the team for outstanding achievements. Are we going to applaud or not? It's all right, there was a dead silence here. I don't know whether you were all shocked to the floor or... but I just thought I'd just announce that. Under the provision of the petition scheme, a petition for debate has been received containing over 3,000 signatures. Can I clarify that there is a maximum of 30 minutes allowed for this debate? No formal motions will be moved or votes taken during this debate. There is no right of reply at the end of the petition organiser. Can I now welcome Marco Longhi to the meeting?
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question on procedure before I deliver my 3-minute speech, please? In other councils, the petitioner actually reads out the petition itself in advance of the 3-minute speech. Would that be practice here as well, or shall I just go to the speech? Right, okay. As long as it's not in the 3 minutes. Okay, thank you. So the wording of the petition itself, as has been advertised on the council's website for a few weeks now, states as follows. Dudley Borough residents are deeply concerned about the effects that the increased presence of illegal immigrants stroke asylum seekers is having within the Metropolitan Borough of Dudley. We, the undersigned, note the recent High Court decision on the Bell Hotel in Epping, Essex, and call on Dudley Metropolitan Borough Council to reject the relocation of illegal migrants asylum seekers by the Home Office to any hotels within our borough. We call on Dudley Metropolitan Borough Council to closely examine the High Court ruling on the Bell Hotel and to seek similar injunctions on any hotels within the Metropolitan Borough of Dudley which are currently being used as hostels for illegal migrants stroke asylum seekers, to action the removal of migrant stroke asylum seekers from these premises and to ensure that in future all hotels in our borough remain open to the general public. We further call on Dudley Metropolitan Borough Council to examine if sufficient weighting is given to the fear of crime aspect with the dispersal of illegal migrant asylum seekers in the community via HMO housing. The fear of crime is a material planning consideration, and given the documented higher incidence of crime associated with the housing of said individuals, we request the Council undertake an immediate planning review into its policy for granting HMO status to applications it receives. That is the wording of the petition. If I may now start on the 3-minute speech. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for inviting me to speak this evening. I speak today on behalf of more than 3,200 Dudley residents who signed my petition because they believe their voices are being ignored. These residents, Mr. Mayor, are not extremists, they are not agitators, they are ordinary, decent people who love this borough and who want to feel safe in their own communities. They are deeply concerned about the unchecked spread of unauthorised HMOs and the quiet repurposing of different buildings for asylum accommodation without proper planning consent or consultation. This is not about hostility, it's about fairness, it's about safety, and it's about accountability. An Article 4 direction requires that smaller HMOs have planning permission. That's a good policy, and Dudley has it. But policy without enforcement is meaningless. We need action that residents can see. So I would ask the Council to do the following. Publish a list of all HMOs, quarterly enforcement data reports so the public can see what the Council is doing, what action is taken, and within identified timeframes. In considering applications, I ask that the Council to give fuller weight to the fear of crime as a legitimate material planning consideration, and to seek further specialist legal advice so that the Council is ready to apply for and defend injunctions if it needed to, just as Epping Forest successfully did under the Bell Hotel ruling. Recent events in nearby Walsall, where the tragic murder of Rhiannon White has been linked in press reports to an individual seeking asylum, have understandably heightened local anxieties. Of course, due legal process must take its course, but such cases underline why residents are right to demand that planning control and public safety go hand in hand. It also reinforces why greater weighting should be given to the fear of crime. I do want to place on record my respect for the Council's planning officers and enforcement team. I know many of them want to do more, but that they face mounting workloads and limited resources. The answer lies not in criticism of staff, but in political leadership and resources from elected members. If this Council, quite unlike this government, truly puts Dudley people first, then let's show it by backing our officers, enforcing our policies, and protecting the integrity of our communities. Mr. Mayor, I commend this petition to the Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Longhi. You managed to finish 8 minutes before we 3 minutes to the phone. Thank you. The matter is now open for debate. Members of the Council.
Councillor Harvey.
Councillor Hawley.
Didn't expect to be first. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I thank Mr. Longhi for his petition and for giving me the opportunity to state what we've done whilst we've been in charge of this authority. And what we've done over the last few years, Mr. Mayor, is to ensure that Dudley has the lowest numbers of asylum seekers anywhere in the West Midlands. He doesn't have to come here, though, and criticise political leadership. For me, or any other Conservative politician on this side of the chamber. You know, some of us went out and got Marco elected as the Dudley North MP. Some of us went out again and tried to get him re-elected. So, you know, we're all friends on this side of the chamber, wherever Marco is. Sorry. Now, the petition calls for the Council to reject the relocation of illegal migrants or asylum seekers by the Home Office and Serco to any hotels within our borough. And I have to say, Mr. Mayor, we are already doing that. Dudley, for all my time in this position, has had one hotel occupied by Serco. For me, that's one too many, but one it is. Now, Dudley has, from the last data available to myself, has 669 asylum seekers, of which 51 are in the one hotel. As leader, I've held to account both Serco and the Home Office under different governments. I cannot recall, though, Marco, as the MP, ever calling out Conservative Home Secretaries for the shocking way Serco operates and treats councils with contempt, and they do treat us with contempt. He never once criticised the last government he was part of, although he's happy to do that now. If you really care, you show that when you criticise your own side at the same time, not when you've slipped off to join another party. Actions speak louder than words, and unfortunately, I'll class Marco as a friend. He was silent when it came to holding Conservative Home Secretaries to account. He kept quiet and copped a nice job as a trade envoy to Brazil. Mr. Mayor, I've instructed our legal team to investigate how we legally prevent issues such as those at Epping. This isn't a Johnny-come-lately policy either. Several years ago, under a former chief executive, I instructed him to write to every single hotel in the borough, warning of the legal challenge they would face if they agreed a contract with Serco. All but the one that we know about agreed and didn't. I will not hesitate as leader of this authority to use every single tool at our disposal to maintain that our hotels are not commandeered by Serco and the Home Office. However, if the government is serious about emptying all hotels, then we must be on our guard. And as the petition rightly points out, the ending of hotels provides another issue, and that is far more serious issue for me is the use of HMOs. In hotels, we know where the government is placing asylum seekers. If they spread out to HMOs, it gets a lot more difficult. Therefore, the planning committee will hear and consider every single application for any new HMO under my leadership. We have ensured through tough action that Serco and the Home Office don't use Dudley the way they do Sandwell and Wolverhampton, where over 600 asylum seekers are kept in hotels across those two boroughs, compared to Dudley's 51. So we must be on our guard and take the same tough stance on the use of HMOs as we have on hotels. Mr. Mayor, I don't have an issue with agreeing with the sentiment and the contents of the petition, but in all honesty, we, this side of the chamber, as a traditional Conservative-run administration, are already doing what is being asked, and we will continue to hold the government, Home Office and Serco to account to ensure Dudley doesn't face the same issues as our Black Country neighbours. Thank you.
I call on Councillor Phipps.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a very short contribution from me, just to confirm, as it was stated that Dudley does not have an Article 4 direction in place by the petitioner. Dudley does have an Article 4 direction in place that was introduced and made confirmed in September 2023. So that is something that's already in place. Every single HMO that is applied for does go to the planning committee. So I believe the petitioner is trying to say that he didn't say that we don't have that.
I said you do.
Oh, in that case, please accept my apology. I misheard you. I thought you said that we do not, and it was a policy we should have. But we have already done that, so thank you.
Councillor Adam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me be clear. It is entirely reasonable and absolutely legitimate for people to be concerned about levels of migration into this country. And it is equally fair to raise questions about how the Home Office is handling the situation, particularly the use of hotel accommodation for people seeking asylum. These are not extreme views. These are concerns shared by people across all walks of life because they touch on our values, our resources, and our sense of fairness. But let me be clear. The answer to these concerns is not to scapegoat people. The answer is to fix what is broken. What we need, and what we should all demand, is a strong, fair and efficient immigration and asylum system. A system that processes claims quickly and fairly, offers sanctuary and compassion to those fleeing war, persecution or torture, and just as importantly, removes and repatriates those whose claims are not upheld and who have no right to remain in the UK. When the system works, there is no need for hotels, there is no need for temporary HMOs in residential areas, and there is no need for communities to feel like they've been left in the dark. So here are the facts. When the government took office 16 months ago, it inherited 224,742 cases in the asylum system, over 224,000 cases. That included an asylum backlog of 85,839 cases affecting over 119,000 people. That backlog didn't appear out of nowhere. It was the result of years of failure to maintain a functioning immigration and asylum system. And yes, that includes former MPs like Mr. Longhi, who was part of that government. They allowed delays to spiral out of control. They left people in limbo, unable to work, unable to move forward, stuck in hotels for months and even years. And they left communities without the funding, the information or the infrastructure to cope with the consequences. Mr. Mayor, every delayed asylum decision is a cost to the taxpayer, and every delay creates anxiety for people who may have suffered trauma and adds pressure on local services. The Labour government has processed tens of thousands of older claims and are on track to eliminate them entirely. They have ramped up the recruitment of asylum caseworkers, and they have committed to ending the use of hotels completely by the end of this Parliament, and their success will be judged at the ballot box. This is not about being tough or soft on immigration. This is about being competent, fair and efficient. Mr. Mayor, truth is not just a virtue, it is a responsibility. Words which are shared faster than facts and opinions dressed up as evidence serve only to sow division within our communities, and I hope that no one in this room wants that. I'm sure Mr. Longhi will join me in condemning anyone spreading misinformation on this issue. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I now call on Councillor Pete Lowe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. My contribution will be relatively brief. I find myself in part accepting and noting both the contribution of the Leader of the Council and the Leader of the Opposition. And part of my contribution was I wish some of the national figures actually use the language and the tone that you have used in this council chamber, because I think it would go a long way to talking about this matter responsibly. Mr. Mayor, we raised concerns as a Black Country Party as way back as March of this year and implored the council to have an open discussion about the issue, because if we were not to have that, then we run the risk of allowing those political parts of our spectrum that we do not wish to have within Dudley trying to take ownership of that. Councillor Aston and indeed Councillor Harley are absolutely correct when we look at the facts of this matter. This is not an issue of October 2025. It's not an issue of June 2024. It's an issue that we can evidence and trace back to when Marco Longhi was a Conservative Member of Parliament. So the reality of what we have really good intended people signing a petition for political ends. And that, Mr. Mayor, is where I think we have a number of concerns. Now, I'll be quite clear. My own personal political views are markedly different to those of Marco Longhi. I believe our country is a tolerant country. I believe it involves and includes people of many faiths and no faith at all. The Britain that I proudly defend looks at what we can look at, how we unite those communities, how we work in those difficult positions to overcome those obstacles. And I know, because I spoke to a number of people who signed this petition, believe exactly the same thing. Now, the second part of the petition talks about HMOs, and I think it's important, Mr. Mayor, that we don't take that in isolation. Because yes, whilst of course houses of multiple occupancy can cause its own community tensions, they don't do that in isolation. Austerity, the fact that we don't have decent housing, all have a significant impact upon the concerns of our communities. Now, Mr. Mayor, I hope my crystal ball is wrong, But what I can envisage is between now and the May 2026 elections, as people attempt to put themselves forward, maybe even see themselves as Dudley residents, in order to seek the support of the ballot box, we will see more of these instances coming forward. So I'll be very clear, Mr. Mayor. We recognise, and indeed we acknowledge many of the issues raised within here, but we also see that vibrant Dudley that all people in this chamber are seeking to encourage. One that looks to what unites our communities, not divides our communities. A Dudley that is tolerant, that recognises and will discuss those challenges we have. That is a Dudley that I recognise, and that is a Dudley that I am proud to be part of. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. I now call on Councillor Andrew Tromans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We note Mr. Longhi has braved the dangerous crossing from Walsall to tonight to present his petition, and we applaud his strenuous efforts. On his journey, he moved from a borough which houses more asylum seekers than the borough we now stand in, according to figures published by the Home Office on the 21st of August. Drawing on that same data set, asylum seekers represent 0.2% of the population in Dudley, and as the petition mover will know as a former MP, most of them have no recourse to public funds. Within that 0%, and that smaller minority of the population who are asylum seekers, are Afghan citizens who served alongside our armed forces in Helmand, and they were offered safe passage to this country in 2021. Speaking to the wording of his petition, which calls for injunctions against hotels that are being used as hostels for illegal immigrants, there is only one facility in this borough which is used for that purpose, as Councillor Harley alluded to in his remarks. However, what we do have is a number of hotels which are being used to house homeless families from the UK. These families are drawn from neighbouring Black Country authorities and London boroughs. That is the shameful legacy of the previous Conservative government he served in. Mr. Longhi, your petition speaks to deep-seated grievances within our community which you knowingly exploit. People are angry, and rightly so. Real wages in the UK have stagnated since 2008. A weekly shop for a family of three averaged at £95, and that's just the basics. We've had 15 years and counting of austerity, which have left our public services on their knees. And meanwhile, our waiting list for social housing in this borough hovers at around 5,000. In the last with all of this happening, in the last 30 years, the British taxpayer has paid £200 billion to shareholders who have a stake in key British industries which were privatised in the 1990s, including water and Royal Mail. The 50 wealthiest families in this country hold more wealth than the poorest 50%. I move and I submit to you, Mr. Mayor, that the people who do the most harm in our society arrive by private jet, not small boat. All of us in public life have a duty to promote community cohesion using reasoned and robust debate instead of peddling fear and division. In the summer of 2024, this borough was spared the violent disorders that other areas endured. After our last council meeting, officers of this council were harassed while carrying out their duties. And it is now necessary to hire a private security firm to protect people who work in this building. I urge you to reflect on your actions and play your part in reducing community tensions in our borough, Mr. Longhi. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I now call on Councillor Ryan Priest.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Marco, first let me start by saying I agree with the principle and the problem that you've raised, that the asylum system in this country is broken. Anybody with sense can see that the backlog is spiralling out of control with no safe and legal route into the country, forcing asylum seekers into small boats and across the channel. And then when they get here, applications routinely take years to process. The government's response has been to house asylum seekers in hotels, an awful policy that's driving tension in our communities, devastating tourist economies, and fundamentally is a pretty poor place for families and children to live. But the brass neck, Marco, of you, of all people, to bring this petition here tonight is staggering, because it was you, your government, that broke the asylum system in the first place. It was you and your government who introduced asylum hotels. In fact, Marco, you're the only person in this chamber tonight who could have done something about it when this disastrous policy was introduced. It was you and your government that broke the system, and now you're trying to build a campaign out of the rubble. You are not on the side of the people on Dudley, you're on your own side. You know full well the division that you stir, and I suspect you do it with intention. There's no community you wouldn't tear apart if it meant a whiff of the halls of Westminster once again. And you know full well that this council has next to no power to affect asylum policy, because that's how your government designed it. You and your party, and your previous party too, use the language of patriotism to spread misinformation. But it's not a patriot who seeks to divide our country and our borough for their own gain. It's not a patriot who flies cheap nylon flags made in China at half-mast across the borough. Patriots are the people who wake up early every Saturday morning to litter pick in the local park, who are baking cakes to sell to raise money for their church roof. Patriots are the people who recognise that things aren't great right now, that the asylum system included in that is something that is broken, and that things are difficult. But the history of our country is that there is always light at the end of the tunnel, and we reach it by coming together and building community and getting stuck in to fix what's broken. For politicians, that means fixing the asylum system and sorting out the mess that the previous government made. Excuse me. That means more caseworkers to fix the backlog. That means getting tough on the gangs that are profiting from this. But the reality is that local government does not have the tools to fix this problem, Marco. You are here for your own gain. It is the government, the previous government and the current government that need to fix this problem. And you can shake your head, Marco, but you are taking for the people in the gallery tonight for a ride for your own gain. I echo the comments of council and urge on you to reflect on that.
Excuse me, can we have silence in the public gallery, please? You have been warned, please be quiet. Okay, can we now have Sean Kesey, please?
Oh, I had the big intake of breath then. Don't worry, it's not going to be that bad. Thank you to Councillor Harley, and thank you to Councillor Ashton. I think everything that you said tonight was genuine. I think it came from what you believe. None of it was personal, and that's the way it should be. Then we get to the Liberal Democrats gaslighting. My goodness me, you blame Marco for the actions of people that are sitting in the gallery and for the 3,200 people that signed his petition. They're not puppets, they're people with genuine concerns, and to write them off the way you just have, I think is absolutely shameful. Just to Councillor Harley very quickly, and I'm sure I'd be doing the same if I was still a Conservative, but as far as I'm aware, Marco's job in Brazil wasn't cushy, it wasn't paid. It was just part of his role as a trade ambassador. I don't believe there was any financial gain at all. Prove me wrong and I will happily apologise. I also think, from my viewing of BBC Parliament on many occasions, that I have seen Marco trying to take on the leadership of, as it was then, the Conservative Party, to express his reservations about what was going on with immigration. Again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I've seen it. I've got much more written down here, but I've had to cross quite a lot out simply because Councillor Hawley and Councillor Aston said what I think they genuinely believe. But let's be honest, the people of Dudley didn't create this crisis. Conservative, and specifically the Blair Labour government, did. They opened the borders, they lost control of asylum and enforcement, and they left local councils to pick up the pieces. And now when residents express real fear, frustration and hopelessness, the response from certain people is ridicule. But ask yourself, do you really think people would be this upset, this angry, if they were living comfortably? If they weren't worrying about how to heat their homes or put food on the table, or whether their children will ever own a house? Of course not. People are angry because they've been driven into hopelessness by the very same failed policies that both establishment parties have championed. You've broken Britain, you've broken hope, and now you try to shame anyone who dares to say so. This debate isn't about hope, it's about accountability. It's about asking why our own residents believe they are being pushed aside while millions are spent housing people who came here illegally. It's about fairness, decency, and standing up for those who feel forgotten. Let's tackle these issues that have made this petition necessary in the first place and show the people of Dudley that their voices still matter. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. If there are no further speakers, that completes the debate on this petition. The petition will be referred to the relevant directors for any further response. Thank you for that. Okay, yeah. The gallery have now got the opportunity to leave, or you can stay.